Hi, I'm Melissa at Desert Gal, and I just, for, I don't know, a few days now, um, the Father just keeps bringing to my mind the issue of porn and sexual sins within the body. And so you might wonder, like, why are you going to address sexual sins or why pornography? And what a lot of people don't seem to understand is that, sin cannot remain in the presence of the Father. And so, unrepented sin or a sin that is not dealt with, is going to be dealt with. It's either going to be dealt with and it's going to be eliminated and repented for, or it's going to be dealt with in the sense of if you're not willing to let go of it, then the Father will give you over to your own devices and He will just let you go your own way and leave you alone. And His Spirit will eventually just leave and He will stop trying to convict you of what you're doing as being wrong. The other reason why to address something like this is because, as a child of the Most High, His heart does beat within me for those who have yet to experience His salvation and His healing power. And so things like this need to be addressed because He doesn't want that any should perish. And if we can expose as much sin as we possibly can in order for more people to be with Him in the end, then it's worth it. And so as a child of Abba, it's my duty as well as the duties of all others to expose sin in a loving way and also show the door, show the way to Messiah who cleanses and takes away all of our sin. In 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9, it says, "Do you not know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the reign of Eloah? Do not be deceived. Neither those who whore, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor the homosexuals, nor thieves, nor greed of gain, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers shall inherit the reign of Eloah. And such were some of you, but you were washed, and you were set apart, and you were declared right in the name of our Master Yahushua, and by the Ruach HaKodesh of our Abba." So, in order for you to inherit the kingdom, you have to be cleansed by the blood of Messiah. And I know a lot of people don't, especially those that are not walking with the Father already, they don't really understand, okay, what do you mean being cleansed by the blood? And, how does that even work? Well, for one, it's acknowledging the sin that you do have in your life. It's acknowledging that you're not perfect. And if you do struggle with whatever the case may be, just being honest with yourself, first and foremost, and recognizing that, shame is probably what's keeping you from even seeking the Father out. Adam and Eve, when they realized their transgressions, they tried to run and hide. And because they felt shame, they felt guilt, they felt that they knew that they had done wrong, and they didn't know what to do about it. And so with their natural instinct, because they had fallen, was to run and hide and keep everything in secret. But in doing that, they then were sacrificing the presence of the Father. And for those of us that are walking with Abba and have acknowledged what His Son has done for us, we know that living day by day, we cannot live without the Father's presence. I mean, there's just, He truly is my breath and my life. And when I go a day without experiencing the Father's presence, I'm just wondering, like, what's wrong or what happened. And, you know, and there have been several days like that in my own life personally. I may do another video explaining how sin has affected my relationship with the Father, just to give more clarity on that. But for the sake of this video, I want to stay on topic with regards to pornography and how it affects a marriage and how it can affect people and how someone can get set free from it. It's like every other sin. Sin creates a separation from the Father, and once you decide that you want to experience His freedom and His salvation and the life that He created for you, once you're at that point where you're just so tired of trying to live life in your own strength and do things your way, and the guilt and the shame just weigh on you, and you feel like you can't be open with anybody about the things that you're experiencing, you know, that's when Abba is there for you. He's always there for you. So you just need to have the courage to turn to Him. And even if you don't have the courage, or you're like Adam and Eve and you just want to run, just take a moment and stop and say, okay, I feel like running. Can you please help me not to run from your presence? And can you please set me free from the things that I'm struggling with? And, you know, tell Him the things that you're struggling with. And He will start to change you from the inside out. So, first, or not first, I don't even know what point I'm on right now. But anyways, in regards to how pornography affects a marriage, I can only speak from my personal experience. And when I first met my husband in, I think it was May of 2004, he walked in through the door of an art gallery that I was working at with several friends of mine. We had opened up an art gallery / coffee shop. And he walked in one day in April, I believe it was, and immediately when I saw him, I knew that he was the one. And I was in a relationship at the time. And so I remember praying. Mind you, I was not living for the Father at this time. So my relationship with Abba was, you know, here and there. I believed in Him and I would still hear His voice, but I definitely was not living for Him. And so I just remember praying at this time saying, oh dear, you know, I'm going to screw this up. Can you please cause me to forget that I even know this? And so it was about 8 months or so later, in January of 2005, when my husband and I started dating. And then a month later, he told me I was the one. And that's when the vision that I had had the previous May came back to me. And I said, yes, you're the one. Like, I knew that he was the one. Anyways, fast forward 2 years, I believe. Yes, to January 2007, when he proposed. And then in August of 2007 is when we got married. But that week before, and we actually waited to consummate the marriage until we actually got married. So the week before our wedding, I went onto his computer just to, I don't know what I was doing. I was probably searching for something. And I went to go type in, and then the search bar auto-filled with all different kinds of websites, like, just popped up. And my husband is in tech, so from, you know, it kind of looked like the address bar just kind of looked like a bunch of tech stuff. And I didn't really, you know, I don't understand computers and technology all that well. But anyways, I clicked on one of the links, and what I saw, like, really freaked me out. Because at the very least, I knew that if something had not been looked at, then it wouldn't be in the history. So I remember going downstairs, and because we let's see, we did share, I think we were in the same house 2 weeks prior to getting married. And because my lease was up at my apartment. So I went downstairs and I confronted him. And he said, yes, that he had been looking at things, but that, you know, it was just research or whatever. And so for the whole week prior to us getting married, I didn't talk to him. I didn't hug him. I didn't kiss him. I didn't even know what to do, except I knew that the Father had told me that this was the one for me to marry. So I obviously went through with the wedding, and I don't know. You know, I went through with it because that's what I believed I was supposed to do. And maybe there are some other people that would disagree or say, you know, that was a red flag or whatever. And yeah, for sure, I believe it was a red flag. Anyways, fast forward through our marriage, I found that our intimate life was not as intimate. And I have dealt since before we got married with chronic pain. But I always made it a point to try to save energy and health for my husband. And I would do what I could during the day, and then, you know, would take a break in the afternoon and then prepare for him when he would get home. And so that way he would never feel the repercussions of my health taken away from him and I in getting to know one another or just spending time with each other. Anyways, over the years I found that he just didn't have any desires, and I didn't understand that, and he would always turn around and tell me, well, you're in pain, you're in pain. And that was not true. Like, you know, I had rested and prepared myself and saved up my energy for a few hours or however many hours I needed to in order to be available to him. And he would spend lots of time on the computer and just tell me, you know, I'm doing this for us, I'm working on this computer program, or I want to make this game, or, you know, just all these things. And I respected how hard he was working, or so I thought. Anyways, I would have a lot of dreams that there were other women, and I would ask him every now and then, like I remember he would come to me in the morning and give me a kiss goodbye before he'd go to work. And I would say, oh my gosh, I just had this terrible dream that, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I would tell him what it was about. And he would, you know, no, whatever. And I would ask him, like, you know, if you're struggling with a crush on someone at work or, you know, one of your friends, like, you can be open about it. Like, I understand, you know, that crushes can develop in the workplace or whatever, but, you know, we need to work through these things together. And he just always denied it. And I would ask him throughout our marriage, you know, have you been tempted to look at anything on the computer, or are you looking at anything on the computer? And he would say no. But whenever we would watch TV together and something like just super shocking would pop up out of nowhere, like, it would freak me out. My sensitivity was so high to this kind of thing. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like, that woman, what is she wearing? Or that man, like, you know, dude's got to put a shirt on or something. And, but his, like, sensitivity was zero. Like, it didn't faze him. And he would say, oh, you know, what are you talking about? Like, that's nothing. And so, you know, there were a lot of signs and a lot of clues that he was still looking at things. And when I would ask him, he would always deny it. And I eventually stopped asking because I got tired of the lies. I could tell that he was lying. And so I just stopped asking. And I didn't really know, excuse me, I didn't really know how to confront sin. And, you know, I was dealing with my own issues, as far as, like, trying to be a good wife and, you know, just being thankful and grateful that he was providing for us. And, you know, I never took advantage of him. I was very mindful and respectful his hard work and of his money. And so I was very conscientious about spending and sticking to our budget because I did not work and had not worked. And so I don't know if I didn't think that it was my place to address sin in his life or what it was. There were a lot of times that he would accuse me of being controlling, or I don't even know. And I realize in hindsight now that a lot of that was blame shifting, and a lot of that was guilt and defensiveness, which comes from being addicted to porn. I'm going to put some links down below if you or anyone you know is struggling with porn, and kind of like how to identify some of the addictions, or how to identify if someone is addicted to porn. So I just didn't know how to address his sin or what to say about it. And so I just gave up, basically. I didn't know what to do. And to be honest, that's probably why the father ended up causing a separation, is because he knew that there was sin in our marriage, and the only way for it to weed itself out was if there was a separation. And so anyways, another thing that I noticed was whenever we were intimate, it felt very performed. I can't explain it other than there never seemed to be an emotional connection, and it wasn't for my lack of trying. It just felt very much rote, and afterwards I always felt dirty and ashamed and guilty, and I could never figure out why I didn't feel loved or cared for. I often felt used, and I just couldn't make sense of it. So it is sad to think about now in hindsight that, you know, the man I was intimate with all these years was never true intimacy, because there was sin in our marriage. And also the spiritual, so that's one of the spiritual effects of porn in a marriage, possibly for a male or for a female to experience, depending on which spouse is involved. But the other person, you know, they're going to feel dirty. They're going to feel guilty, because that person that is involved in the sin is basically transferring all that guilt and that shame and that perversion over to their spouse that's not using. And so we end up feeling that guilt and that shame and that grossness, and it's just, I don't know how to explain it other than that. So like I said, there are sites that can help. There's Covenant Eyes, and there's a term called intimacy anorexia, because keep in mind that porn is just a symptom of a greater problem. Porn, like drug use or alcoholism or even manipulation or gossip or slander, all these different types of sins are a symptom of a greater issue, and that is that they have not been healed yet. They have not come to know the Father. They have not come to know His delivering power through His Son. And so I wanted to read a few scripture verses here. Galatians 5:16 says, "So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh." You know, as long as we're walking according to the Spirit and we're submitting to the Father, then the enemy and those temptations will flee, and we don't have to succumb to the desires of our flesh. And I'll just go into that real quick, because for myself, since my husband and I have been separated for over a year now, you know, there was temptation of masturbation early on, and I just had to like surrender to the Father. And I think it's like quite amazing. Like people say, oh, you know, if you're not being intimate, then you're going to end up masturbating. And that's just not true. The Father can give you the power to overcome all sexual sins. You don't have to please your flesh and succumb to that. You just don't. So, masturbation is not an excuse. Being single is not an excuse. Being separated is not an excuse for sinning against your own body. Like this body was bought with a price, and your body was bought with a price. So that doesn't give you a right to do with your body as you please. This is not ours. This is a vessel that is for Abba alone to use. And then in Isaiah 53:5, it says, "But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him. And by his stripes we are healed." The word healed here is Rapha, Strong 7495. And it means to become fresh, completely healed, purified, and repaired. So this doesn't only mean, like a sickness or a cold or an infirmity that we're feeling, but this means like in the very depths of ourselves, that by the Messiah's stripes, we were healed. Our spirits were healed, our soul was healed. And once we start walking in that, then, whatever insecurities we might have, like those things are healed because he completes us. And I just think that's so amazing because, a lot of symptoms of sin are due to rejection or pain or abuse, even molestation. There's so much pain that we've experienced in our lives. And the Father can heal that by his Son. That's why he sent his Son, to restore us back to before the fall. So, just imagine, like, you can be repaired. You can be repaired. There is nothing within you that the Father does not have the power to repair inside of you. So know that. Know that. 1 Peter 1:9 or 1:8 says, "Though you have not seen him, you love him, and though you do not see him now, you believe in him, and rejoice with an inexpressible and glorious joy, now that you are receiving the goal of your faith and the salvation of your souls." Concerning, I think that's it. And so the word soul here is self. So the Father came to heal our soul, came to heal ourselves, and to restore us back to what we once were. And that's just what's so powerful about now us having, being his Spirit can indwell in us and give us the strength to exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees. I actually really love that scripture. I think it's in Matthew chapter 7. So I'll try to find it quickly before the video ends. No, chapter 5. And so Messiah here is he's actually speaking about the Torah and the prophets in verse 17, and how he didn't come to destroy them, but came to complete them. And in verse 20 it says, "For I say unto you, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall by no means enter into the reign of the heavens." So when you think about the righteousness of the Pharisees and the scribes, and you're like, how on earth is my righteousness going to exceed that? Because they did a whole lot. They didn't do it with the right spirit. They did it in their flesh because they did not have the Ruach HaKodesh. But now we have the Ruach HaKodesh, and we have no excuses. If we surrender to the Father, He is faithful and just to forgive us for everything that we've done and to cleanse us from all those things. And he tells us, Messiah told the lady, he said, go and sin no more. Like, you've been forgiven. You've been healed. You've been restored. You've been redeemed. Go and sin no more. So, by the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, we have the ability to no longer walk in sin. So if you're struggling with, any kind of addictions, the Father can restore you. You just have to be honest with Him and tell Him what you're struggling with. Be open with Him about it and allow Him to search your heart and ask him to just, just ask him. Ask him to heal you and to change you, because there are true believers and doers of the word that are experiencing his freedom on a daily basis. And it is absolutely amazing. So this is why those of us who are being called to address sin are addressing sin. It's because we want you to experience that same freedom and to enter into the kingdom of the Most High with us. We don't want any to perish. We don't want any to be left behind. So just know that when we are, when we're bringing out these things, whether it be porn or masturbation or whatever the case may be, we're doing it because we love you. We want to see you set free, and we want a bigger family. We want more brothers and sisters. So thank you for listening. If you made it this far, I realize it's a bit long. And I just ask that you please continue to keep me in prayer. The mediation day has not been set yet between my husband and I. So, I don't know what the Father wants to do with that. I don't know what to expect with the meeting. But please keep me in prayer for that. And I just want to say thank you. And may you get to experience the Father's redeeming change of his Spirit in your life. Shalom.